I'm Nizar Abrams, the co-owner of Reader's Den Comic Shop. We're a Cape Town-based comic book business for the last 21 years, so it's been quite a haul, but a fantastic run so far. We're in the Claremont store. We've got 2 stores, another one in Tiger Valley Centre, and then we also have an online shop. So we have basically fun while we're working, and the work is fun.
Best job on earth.
Best job on earth.
I'm Amore Roda. I do a comic book called Velocity, which is this. We've done 3 issues since 2010, it's a South African and Australian fantasy and sci-fi anthology. The writers are from that side and this side. Neil Howard is the guy that organizes it in Australia. I'm the guy that does it here. It takes about 8 months to put the book together, so it's quite a mission, but at the end of the day it's also something that we all love doing. I think there's maybe 2 of the artists that are doing comic book kind of stuff, and the rest are people that actually do this after hours around the normal day jobs of being accountants or lawyers or designers or students, for that matter.
The love for comics started obviously at a very young age. It's something fortunately we were exposed to as kids, and we didn't have parents who sort of took it away from us. At the time, like in the late 70s, when it was probably frowned upon. But we were fortunate that comics were freely available to us, and the attraction was just there from the start, And luckily they were available at corner cafes, which I don't think the youngsters of today are sort of exposed to. So that kind of exposure alone, and then the fascination as a child, you're with your whole imagination running wild, and here's something that can actually feed that. It was sort of an instant love, and we wouldn't see it as collectors, Today it's become a very serious game, but at that time and that age, we're doing it just for the fun, not the value of the comic, not sort of building up a collection. It was about a bunch of youngsters. We were passing around comics, sort of running to the corner cafe, getting the latest comic every week, and it got us excited, and it became a hobby, but it stuck with us fortunately. That fascination has never left us, and the love of it and the reading of it, it's still there today. So.
I started reading comic books as a kid as well. My dad was into the whole comic book scene in actual fact. He used to go to the local corner shops, which were mostly in town. I grew up in Port Elizabeth, which is really actually very small, and he used to not get me American comic books, he got me all the British stuff. So my influences are more the war kind of comic books, so small digest things, and the Tigers, a whole lot of Fleetway publications, Dan Day and things like that. That's what I saw initially. My love for comic books started with that, and that kind of illustrative style from the European side of things. And then obviously my friends at school, we would talk about comic books and they'd go, but I've read about this and this, and I'd never seen Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. Daredevil was my favorite though back then. So when I got into American comic books, it was a totally different thing. I think the other kids would get into buying sweets and things like that, and we were the guys that would go to the shop and get a 10-cent comic book because you actually really could. And also that old swapping out thing worked out perfectly because 5 of you go and each one buys a comic book, and you get to read all 5 comic books, and it only costs you really 10 cents.
What do you miss from the comic books back then that you think is maybe not being done the same way today?
I must say a lot has changed in terms of just the look and the feel of the comics, It had the old school look and feel. Today's stuff is very much, it's gone. It's got that influence obviously of the digital age. It's a lot more slick. But also, it needed to change in terms of appealing to today's crowd as to what they are used to, in terms of TV screens and stuff. So obviously that feel and look has come into comics. But what I must add to that is, it's actually, the art has been driven because of that. In those it was very flat and 2D. Not that anything was wrong with that, it was just that for the time it was great. But if that didn't evolve, then there wouldn't be that attraction. People would just look at it and say, well, this is quite weak. And because the art has actually evolved so much, that actually makes it sort of very current and very, very sort of attractive to kids of today's time.
I think what's changed as well is that there's, even within superhero comic books, a wider range of things that will appeal to people. It's kind of a weird thing because you've got 50 Spider-Mans coming out in a month because people are reading that. But it's also sort of supposed to be aimed at different age levels and age groups.
On a formal basis, I would say the publishers in South Africa are not sort of recognizing that this is quality literature being put out, quality artwork is being put out, and the lack of support for that from a publisher level, it actually takes away from it, because once a publisher supports something, it makes it sort of very sort of, this is real and it's legitimate. So if you don't have that backing, you sort of take away from what these guys are putting out there. You know, you're not giving it that stamp of approval in a sense. But what I like is these guys don't give up because they know they got something good.
Where I see comic books going instead of people chasing this local dream is I see a lot of the guys actually turning their attention overseas. There's a couple of guys that are already working with international companies doing concept artwork for them, for instance, on comic books or on gaming things. And I think that's where people are going to go, because the print barrier is still sitting here, the distribution barrier is still sitting here. But if you go online, if you create your product out there, the guys from Cotton Star did it really well. They building an online base first and then selling a published version afterwards. And I think that is the smarter way to go about it. Velocity is not doing that just yet, but plans are in place to actually move into that space as well, to go online and try to get the international market first. And if the local guys don't pick it up, it's not such a big deal.